Hello, my name is Lillian Okibe. Welcome to my channel. One of the questions I get a lot in my DMs on Instagram is, Lillian, my hair is always dry and brittle and it's always breaking. What can I do to keep my hair moisturized? Now, moisturizing the hair is so important, because if your hair is dry, that will mean that it's going to break more often. And if your hair is constantly breaking, then you're not going to be retaining any length. You're not going to be growing. Like, even though your hair is growing, you're not going to retain any length because it's going to be breaking. So understanding the principle behind moisturizing your hair is so important. Now, when I ask people like, how do you moisturize your hair, explain to me how you moisturize your hair, and basically like just interact with you guys on how to moisturize your hair, that's usually the first thing I ask when people send me DMs complaining that your hair is always dry. By conversing with you guys, I've come to see that many people do not really understand the principle behind moisturizing their hair. They just know that, oh, I use the LOC method, I use the LCO method, without knowing what it is that they're doing and why they're doing what they are doing, and that way most times that's why they usually do not get the best results. So in this video, I'm going to be explaining to you guys the principle behind moisturizing your hair in very simple terms, so that you can really understand what you should look out for when you moisturize your hair, and how to get the best results to keeping your hair moisturized round the clock. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then please keep on watching. So I come to see that so many people mistake moisturized hair for damp hair or wet hair. There's a difference between moisturized hair and damp hair or wet hair. Wet hair can be dry. Like, wet hair can be dry in the sense that it is not moisturized. It is possible for wet hair to not be moisturized. It's also possible for dry hair to be moisturized. You guys understand better later on as I keep explaining. So when you're looking to moisturize your hair, what you should have in mind is that what you're trying to do is you're trying to get your hair to drink in as much water as possible, and then you're trying to make sure that that water remains in your hair for a long period of time, even though the water that is adhering to the surface of your hair dries away. So even though your hair is dry in the sense that it doesn't feel wet to the touch, you're trying as much as possible that the water that your hair has already consumed, that is within the your hair shaft, remains there for as long as possible. Let me use spaghetti for an illustration now. So when you take your spaghetti fresh out of your pack, the spaghetti is like really hard, it's brittle, if you just try to bend the spaghetti, it's going to break with your slightest touch. That can be likened to dry hair. That is basically what dry hair is like. When your hair is dry and not moisturized, you know, at that point your hair is brittle, it's prone to breakage, and with any slightest touch or manipulation, it's going to break. As soon as you put your spaghetti in a bowl and pour some water on it, the spaghetti has not really absorbed the water that you poured into the bowl yet, even though it's totally wet. Like, it's inside of water, so the surface of the spaghetti is wet, but it has not really absorbed the water yet. So at that point, the spaghetti is wet, but it's still dry within it. Like, if you pick out like a fiber of the spaghetti and try to bend it, it's still going to break despite the fact that it is wet. So that is what I mean by having wet hair that's unmoisturized. So despite the fact that the spaghetti is wet, the surface is wet, it is still dry, it's still prone to breakage, because the spaghetti has not really absorbed the moisture from the water yet. So as soon as you put your spaghetti on fire, right, and you cook it for some time, probably 10 minutes, the spaghetti starts to absorb some of the water. At that point, the spaghetti becomes softer, it becomes more flexible. If you bring out your spaghetti from the water, or like your boiling water, if you try to bend it, it's going to bend and you know, just assume so many shapes without breaking. At that point, your spaghetti is moisturized, but it is wet in the sense that you still have a lot of water on the surface of the spaghetti, you know. So as soon as you drain the spaghetti, remove all the excess water from the surface of it, the spaghetti is still really flexible and can still move without breaking and things like that, despite the fact that the surface is no longer wet. You don't have any form of water on the surface. At that point, you can say that the spaghetti is moisturized and it's not wet. It is dry in the sense that the surface of the spaghetti is free from water, right? But the spaghetti has absorbed enough water such that it can move freely without breaking and things like that. That is the ideal form that you want to achieve whenever you moisturize your hair. So whenever you're moisturizing your hair, you should have it at the back of your mind that, oh, I want my hair to be flexible, to have absorbed as much water as it possibly can, and for it to be flexible. The thing with natural hair is it does not stop there. For natural hair, just like any other thing, even for your spaghetti, even though your hair is moisturized, right, you want it to remain moisturized, in that moisturized state of being flexible and manageable for as long as possible. You don't want, because if you just leave your hair like that, it's going to, all the moisture that your hair has absorbed, if you just leave it exposed like that, it's most likely going to vanish within the next few hours. So when you're moisturizing, you're trying to make sure that the moisture that your hair has absorbed at that point when it's really flexible, you want it to remain in your hair for as long as possible. And that's where sealing your hair with an oil or with a butter or with a cream, that's where it's important. Now, I find that what many people get wrong when they moisturize their hair is that they look to products for moisture, and I feel like that is a big mistake many people make, and that's why you see people constantly putting up all sorts of products on their hair and their hair still feels like dry, and they are complaining that, oh, it is the Cantu leave-in conditioner that I'm using that is not good, it's not moisturizing my hair, or it is this Shea Moisture leave-in conditioner that I'm using is not good, it's not moisturizing my hair. Meanwhile, the problem they're having is that they are depending on the product for moisture. The source of moisture, what you're trying to do, like when you apply products on your hair, you're trying to, even if it's a leave-in conditioner, all the products you're doing, you're just trying to keep the moisture that your hair has absorbed from the water on your hair for longer. I'm not saying keep your hair wet for longer, I'm saying your hair has absorbed as much water as it possibly can, right? So the products you're adding to your hair are just basically to keep the water on your hair for long, like to keep your hair flexible and moving. Like generally for everybody, when your hair has absorbed enough water, it's going to be flexible, it's going to be manageable, it's going to like be able to do so many things without breaking. So all these other products that you're using, whether it's the LOC method, the LCO method, whatever it is that you're doing, those products are just to make sure that your hair remains like that for longer, even after the water dries out from the surface of your hair. I feel like that is the concept of moisturizing your hair, and that's why have that at the back of your mind whenever you're moisturizing your hair. And that's why it's really weird how people just take a cream to apply on dry hair and they complain that their hair is dry. Of course your hair is going to be dry because you did not feed your hair with water for your hair to hold on to while you apply the product on it. I don't know if that makes sense. This is why the first step to actually moisturizing your hair starts on wash day, when you strip your hair of all the products you have on your hair. You wash your hair clean for it to be clean and to be able to absorb as much water as it possibly can. That is your first, I feel like that's the most important step to moisturizing your hair, and that's what will really affect how moisturized your hair will be throughout the period of you wearing your hair before your next wash day. And I feel like that wash day is usually the most important day to infuse moisture in your hair. The same concept happens when people deep condition their hair. I see still so many people, when they deep condition their hair, they go into the shower, wash their hair, dry their hair, and when they dry their hair, they like squeeze their hair such that, apart from the fact that they are removing all the water, all the excess water on the surface of their hair, they are squeezing their hair such that even some of the water that the hair has already absorbed, they are squeezing it out before they go on to apply their deep conditioner. Personally, I feel like that is wrong, because basically, yeah, apart from the fact that deep conditioners have some nourishing ingredients that help to nourish the hair, another important role of deep conditioning is that's your first step of layering of products in such a way, that's your first step of sealing, you know. So I feel like if you always notice that your hair is always dry, no matter what you do, you deep condition, you moisturize, this, that, start applying your products on wet hair. So on wash day, do not squeeze out the excess water from your hair before you go on to apply your deep conditioner. It's best to apply your deep conditioner in the shower where your hair is soaking wet. That way you have some, like your hair has already absorbed some moisture, so you are putting on deep conditioner on wet hair, such that the moisture that your hair has absorbed, and the fact that you leave deep conditioner in your hair for a while, some of the nourishing ingredients will penetrate into your hair and kind of like seal in the moisture. Apart from the fact that it's nourishing your hair, it's also sealing in the moisture from the water that your hair has already absorbed, and that way your hair is going to remain moisturized longer. And that's why people that moisturize, that deep condition their hair up, will notice that their hair tends to start remaining moisturized for a longer period of time as when they do not deep condition. For me personally, I've also noticed that. But you're not going to be getting the best out of your deep conditioner if you're applying your deep conditioner on dry hair. So when you're applying your deep conditioner, apply on wet hair. At worst case scenario, just pat dry your hair gently, such that just the excess water on top of your hair will be the only amount of water that will be removed. The water that your hair has already absorbed will remain there while you apply your deep conditioner. Or better still, I'll advise that you apply your deep conditioner on wet hair. That will give you better results. So after deep conditioning your hair, the next steps to keeping your hair moisturized longer is your moisturizing routine. You know, so after you've applied your deep conditioner, you go ahead and rinse out the deep conditioner. Most times you're still going to have some deep conditioner on your hair, like no matter how much you rinse it, except you wash with a shampoo. If you don't wash with a shampoo, some of the ingredients in deep conditioner will remain on your hair. So if you've done that first step of water, you know, your hair has absorbed some water, you've sealed in some of that water. Now you're going on to your next step of moisturizing. So the first step of that also should be water, right? Water, then you seal in that water with your product. It could be your liquid, your oil, and your cream, or whatever, or your liquid, your butter. Personally, I like to use just butter, and sometimes I use leave-in conditioner and butter, you know. So that's your next step. Water should be the base of any moisture thing that you're doing, because water is the #1 source of moisture. It doesn't matter whatever product you're using, and that's why you find some people using spritz in their hair, and they feel like it's so watery. The #1 ingredient is H2O, but they spray it on their hair, but their hair is still really dry. Like, no matter what you're using, even if you're using a spritz, I always recommend that you first spray your hair with enough water that your hair absorbs the water before you go on to apply products. Products are just to keep your hair moisturized for longer, in such a way they are just to seal in the moisture that your hair has already absorbed from the water, for it to remain malleable and flexible without breaking for longer. And I feel like so many people get that wrong. You notice that if you take your plain spaghetti, cooked spaghetti, you cooked your spaghetti by just boiling your spaghetti with no ingredients in it, or maybe you added your salt or whatever, just plain water. After cooking, put it exposed, and then you take another spaghetti, what we call in Nigeria, we call jollof spaghetti. For that, how we cook that is, you're basically cooking your spaghetti with your sauce. So you have some oil in your spaghetti. So if you take the two recipes of spaghetti and put them exposed under the same atmospheric condition, the plain spaghetti that has no oils in it will dry a lot faster than the spaghetti that has some oil in it, you know. So that just gives you an idea of the role product, oils, butter play in keeping your hair moisturized longer. Those things are not moisturizers. Now you can really reach out for it if you want that quick boost, you know, just quick, you're going out, you're running out of time, just quickly, you know, that kind of thing. But you should not really depend on all those products for your moisture. Water is your #1 source of hydration, and hydration is what we liken to water, because it is the hydration that will make your hair flexible. That is the hydration that will make your hair be able to move and bend without breaking easily. So that's the #1 thing you should have at the back of your mind when you moisturize your hair. What can I do to hydrate my hair? Now, your hair will not be easily hydrated if you already have layers and layers and layers of products on it. And that's why you see some people complaining that I've done everything, my hair is always dry and things like that. That's because you do not wash your hair to get rid of all the products. And depending on the kind of products you use, some people may have to wash more often than others, and I talked extensively about that in one of my videos. Your routine, the routines that you follow are very important. Like, everything should work together. For example, someone who uses thick heavy creams and butters, you should be washing your hair more often than someone who doesn't, someone who uses light things, someone who doesn't apply product as often, you know, because as soon as your hair becomes clogged with all those sealing products, it's just a matter of time. Your hair will not be able to absorb the water or the hydration. Your hair will not be easily hydrated, in the sense that it will not be absorbing water as it possibly can. So you really want to go back to your drawing board, go back, wash your hair, get rid of all the products on your hair, just to give your hair a fresh start, to remove all the blockages that we have, because all those products are like, they create blocks over the surface of our hair, such that the water that our hair has already absorbed will not evaporate so fast. You know, you see people using heavy creams, heavy butters, heavy things, you know, and they wash their hair once a month, and you see them constantly applying those heavy products on their hair every 2 days, every 3 days, and you see them do this for 1 month, and they complain that their hair is dry. Of course your hair is going to be dry, because after a while, after about like a week or 2 weeks, your hair will be so clogged with all those products that it will no longer be able to accept the hydration from the water. And if your hair is not able to accept the hydration from the water, no matter what you do, even if you just apply the product, if you wet your hair now, in the next 2 minutes it's going to vanish, because your hair did not absorb it. You know, it's not just about having hair on the surface, having water on the surface of your hair. It's possible for you to have water on the surface of your hair and your hair is still going to be dry, it's still going to be brittle, it's still going to be prone to breaking. So what you're trying to do is make sure your hair drinks in water, and you're trying to keep the water in your hair as long as possible. Also, you're trying to make sure that after a while, when you have too much sealing on top of your hair, you want to remove that, because no matter what you do, after a while the water will still evaporate. No matter how much you seal it, it will definitely evaporate. The fact that you sealed in your hair properly does not mean that it will never be dry again. It's still going to be dry no matter how much you seal. So you want to make sure that after a while, after sealing your hair such a way that you have so many layers of sealant on it, you want to remove that layer of sealing so that your hair will have room to drink in more water. And that's why your hair regimen is so important. Everything should work together such that you're doing this because you did something yesterday. What you're going to do tomorrow, you're doing it because of what you did today. You know, everything should be interconnected, and that way you're going to be getting the best results. Your hair is going to be moisturized, your hair is going to be constantly moisturized, it's going to be flexible, it's going to break less, and overall you're just going to have a more like enjoyable hair journey. I'm going to leave that video in the iCards where I explain extensively how to create a routine that works for you. So I feel like you guys will find that video very, very helpful. So I'll leave it in the card. So with that, we've come to the end of this video. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed to my channel already, make sure you subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys in my next video.